Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Brand new episode, her business, her voice, her conversation. Well, I'm always about the thing of business and podcasting, reinventing ourselves to become entrepreneurs and podcasters. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And we can always learn the technical things about it. But today we're going to take an inward look. And I want you to track with me because we're going to talk about doing things intentionally. So I have with me right here, intentional life coach. She's been seen on ABC, CBS, and NBC. She's an Esquire podcaster, Sallie Wagner. Sallie, thank you for joining me.
Margot, thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited. You are a intentional life coach. And right away, what caught my eye about you is your mission statement. You are out to guide people to reclaim their power of choice in their lives. How serious is that? How far away from actually claiming choice in our lives are we as a society? Or let me niche it down. Are we as women as a whole?
I think many of us go through life on autopilot, and we're not making conscious choices. We're not being intentional in how we live. And so we have abdicated our power to society, to, that programming that we get from all these different sources about who we ought to be and how we ought to live our lives. Yeah. So I think it's a big problem for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. How do you think that we are actually sleepwalking? Does it seem to bother anybody that we're just kind of these mechanically moving about? What say you about that?
Yes, sleepwalking is an excellent description of it. Sometimes I say, oh, we're living the zombie apocalypse. We just don't know it yet. And I think people who are sleepwalking, who are running on autopilot, they know it at some level because we feel that discomfort in our own skins, those questions that like, oh my gosh, is this all there is? I used to describe myself as successfully discontent, doing all the things that the world says I ought to do, and yet it just doesn't feel as good as it ought to feel.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting. Thank you for your transparency because so many women, you are an Esquire. I mean, you invested time, money, brain cells, and you made it, so people would look at you and say, you're an attorney. Why aren't you happy? Why are you disconnected? Have you forgot about the kind of money you can make? We get so sucked into what other people think about us, what they say about us. So how do you help women in particular reclaim their lives and actually find the grit and the gumption to choose what they want to do? What's that process like?
It's really a process of self-discovery and asking a lot of questions of ourselves. And it starts with this premise that it's not what you don't know that holds you back. It's what you do know that's not true that holds you back. Because we have all of this information coming at us that is not true, and yet we believe it. And so as we start to understand, you have to live your life in this way. You have to have this kind of career and this kind of car and these clothes. And then when we slow down and ask ourselves, why is that important to me? Is it because I deem it to be worthy of me? Or is it because somebody told me it should be important? And when we start asking those kinds of questions, we can peel back the layers of that onion to really get to who we are.
Mm-hmm. How do you get people so that they accept that vulnerable position that they have to put themselves into so that you can peel back the layers? Are they ready? Do they come to you ready to be vulnerable?
Yes. And a couple of different ways that happens. One can be when there's a dramatic change in their lives, like birth, death, marriage, divorce, job loss, or job change, or, think about the past 2 years we've all lived through. That's very disorienting, because we've lost those expectations for how life is supposed to be. So when we experience that kind of a dramatic change, that's the perfect time when people start questioning and they're ready for the journey. And then another way, I call it life creep, when you wake up one day and just wonder what happened with your life. when you start looking at your life and you just ask yourself, is this all there is? Is this really how it's supposed to be? So those are typically the pivotal times when somebody is going to be looking for life coaching.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And I can relate to both of those times when you do seek help. Do you find that most of us are, gosh, I have so many questions right here, right now, because you said so much and I can relate on so many levels. I guess my next question is coming out of that just sleepwalking way of living and raising your hand, investing in yourself and saying, I'm at a crossroads. There's more. I know that it is. And I have to find somebody who's going to help me. You say something in your purpose about people being healed. And so that they can move to their joy, so that they can move to gratitude. How does that all work together as you are helping a person to choose their life?
Well, just think about those dramatic changes that I mentioned, the death of a spouse or a child or a partner or a parent. I mean, 18 years ago, my first husband passed away. I've lost parents. I've lost my sister. We've all had those kinds of losses. And when we have that wound of losing part of ourselves. We don't know who we are anymore because we only knew ourselves in relation to them, right? And so healing is a big part of what we do as we reclaim our power of choice. And as we heal, we can come to understand that joy really is a decision. It's a choice. It's like the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. If you're a thermometer, you're just reflecting what's going on in the environment around you. But if you're a thermostat, you're actually setting the environment. And that's what joy is. We make the choice and we choose joy in our lives. And when we do that, not only does that facilitate the healing, but it also opens up a world of gratitude to us.
Yes. Man, this is so good. I have found that joy and gratitude, they activate the true energy, your true energy. Have you found, Sallie, that when a person is in there, as they say, their sweet spot, when they are in their healed place of healing, that when they are doing the life work or whatever they're supposed to be doing, the life that they chose, no matter it, out of a dead sleep, they'll find the energy to do and show up and be about what they're supposed to be. Is that something that you found with your clients?
Oh, absolutely. It's because we step into our power when we do that. We reclaim that power and that energy, and everything is a joy. Everything is an opportunity to express gratitude. And the expression of gratitude is such an important thing. It affects us physically. It affects us down to our level of our DNA strands, and it can help us live longer. It helps us build strong relationships with people in our lives. When we express gratitude, that is one of the best ways to build a relationship. Whether it's in business or whether it's in your personal life. So gratitude is certainly one of the key elements in anything we want to do in life.
And we can't really have healthy relationships until we are healed, until we go through that healing process, because we don't see ourselves, we don't see others through the lens of a healed you. Is
Yeah.
that what I hear you say?
Yes, when we're not healed, it's like we have all these fragments of ourselves, and we're going to act from that wounded person, mostly children, right? So we have this 6-year-old running around inside a grown-up body, acting and reacting from a place of being wounded and hurt, and all the things that we go through as children, and then as we grow older. So that's going to play out until we heal and then integrate all of those parts into ourselves.
I agree. I agree. I'm looking at how when we were in COVID, everything slowed down. The
Mhm.
air was better. Life was better for most of us. But now things are back to, as they want to say, normal. And I question whether or not that's a good thing. For me, there are times I refuse to go back to that helter-skelter living. But when you as a professional look at what's going on and how there's no real healing and love and joy and gratitude, and we see that because of how people are playing things out in the world, what do you say for the future of those of us who want to stay whole? We put
Mhm.
in the work. What do you say to those of us who we're looking out and we see this, but I'm hanging on to what I have? What do you say?
Right, right. So I think, many times, and we've heard the phrase, and now it's going to go out of my head, but it's post-traumatic growth.
Mm.
So, when we experience a trauma, like, for example, an illness or the loss of a loved one, that kind of thing, when we have that kind of trauma, many times we're spurred to growth. And I think, we've all experienced this collective trauma over the past 2+ years. And for a lot of us, it has been the springboard for growth. And I think we're not going to go back. We're not going to, just turn our face away from this growth opportunity. And we also have the opportunity to turn it into a post-ecstatic growth, where we consciously and intentionally accept the challenge of moving forward in a new way. And we have the opportunity to live out that new future that we envision for ourselves and for all of the world.
So I hear you say, if you're watching, if you're looking, if you're in tune to yourself, you are open to opportunities that are coming, that will come if you stay open. Did I hear you? I feel like I didn't quite grasp that, but there was something there for us. We came out of this traumatic time and place, and now there are opportunities waiting for us if we
Yes.
say yes. Help me with this. Help me with this
Yeah.
thought, because it is
No,
so wonderful.
you are right on. I truly believe that. And we see that in a lot of areas, and we also see the other side of it, where people are just like, oh, I can't face it, and so they're feeling all that angst, that anxiety and anger, and just, no direction, right? As if they've lost all of their anchoring in life. And I think for those of us who see a different way, it's an opportunity to help those people along as well. As I said earlier, we've lost those expectations for how life is supposed to be. And that's very traumatic for a lot of people. And so, there are a lot of people who are suffering, and perhaps they're acting out in ways that we find off-putting, and yet they're acting out their pain. And when we can understand that, then we can come to them from a position of strength and gratitude for the opportunity to help them, I think.
Wow, that's insightful. I never saw it that way. I never saw that. People are reacting that way out of a wounded and
Mhm.
fearful,
Yeah.
not able to change. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sallie. Thank you for bringing that out. You are a colleague. You also are a podcaster. Tell us
Yes.
about high frequency mindset. Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you for asking. It's a podcast that I have, and I talk with a variety of people. Earlier today, I was talking with a physician who has devoted the last 40 years to helping people change the mindset to overcome stress and anger and all these things that we've been talking about here. So I just talk to a variety of people, and sometimes it's the kinds of things that you and I are talking about. Sometimes we talk about, the nuts and bolts of how do you build a business and make it successful with marketing and branding and sales and all that kind of stuff, right? And I just absolutely love it because it gives me such a fabulous opportunity to talk to people and meet people, and there's always something that I learned from somebody else.
I agree. This thing of podcasting is such a gift and it's an
Yeah.
opportunity. It really is. So what can I say? This has been a joy, and you opened up my eyes to human nature. Well, not human nature, but what's going on with mankind these days and how we have choices. We don't have to just be on that hamster wheel. We can design our lives if we get with someone such as yourself. And Sallie, I mean, you've been doing, you're not a novice. You know what you're good at what you do. You're excellent at guiding people into their next and understanding what's going on with them. And that's so important because it's noisy. As I was speaking to someone earlier, it's so very noisy in life. So if a person knows that they're at the crossroads and it's time to work with Sallie Wagner, I have to make a choice. I have to make a change. The old way is not working. Oh, I know something is waiting for me. How do I get rid of this old? How do I get the new? How do they get to you, Sallie? What's the best way to reach you?
Well, people can check me out at my website. It's intentionallifecoaching.net. And you can contact me through email from there. You can get my Calendly link, and I'd love to offer a complimentary session for just a talk, or with EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because those are fabulous tools that can really accelerate somebody on the path to get some concrete results, to see real change in their lives.
Wow. So you operate with different modalities. I'm telling you folks, this lady knows her stuff. She is not a novice. So I know that we have a few minutes left, and I just want people to know that you deal with trauma awareness also.
Yes.
So
yes.
Real quick, I just have a question concerning how important is it for us to address the traumas that happen in our lives?
Well, it's absolutely crucial because trauma lives in our bodies. All of those emotions live in our bodies. And until we get it out of our bodies in a productive way, we're going to be living in the past. And because trauma is always backward looking, and we're going to be reliving, and it's going to be triggered on a regular basis by just typical life events, and there are certain responses to trauma that we continue to live out, like fight or flight, or freeze, or collapse, submit, or please and appease, and we might change how we express it depending on the situation. And yet, until we can really heal from that, we're not going to be able to make those conscious choices. We're still abdicating our power to that trauma that was in the past. So that means not only are we not present, we're holding ourselves back from that future and that fabulous life that we are called to create for ourselves.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So trauma can actually hold you hostage and be the reason why you are not claiming your next. You're not claiming all those possibilities that are just waiting for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh I promise, just this is my final question concerning this trauma. Does it lie? I mean, can it be, it's a part of you, but can
Yes.
it be so tucked away until you don't even know that it's there, until
Yeah.
something triggers it, and then it's like a volcano and it's
Yes.
spewing everywhere, and you can't even begin to do anything with it except get with someone such as yourself, or even maybe
Mhm.
a psychologist or a
Yes.
therapist. Speak to that, please.
Absolutely. That happens so many times. Many times the trauma that we experienced was before we were even verbal, before we could even make sense of what was happening. I personally have had the experience of blocking it out. Remember, I said, we have all these different parts, and we're very good at suppressing those parts that are difficult to deal with. And when I was an adult and practicing law, and suddenly a situation occurred that, boom, and I had recall of all of these things that had happened in the past that were very traumatic. So it does happen that and yet I was living it out. So even though I wasn't consciously aware of it and consciously remembering it, I was still living out the trauma.
Mm.
And so many times it's that missing piece that we don't know why our lives are the way they are. And yet when we make the connection between the trauma and playing it out, everything clicks. And then it begins to make sense. And then we are in a position to heal.
Gosh. Fascinating conversation. We could go on for hours and hours, because I don't know of one person, if they're telling the truth, who can't relate to some kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And the inability to claim their next the way they want to claim it. I think most of us have been there, or we are there now. So
Yes.
Sallie Wagner, I want people to definitely go over to High Frequency Mindset. Find that podcast on all of the major platforms. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you definitely want to tune in. And if you need the help of Sallie Wagner, an intentional life coach, then she's already told you how to get in contact with her. And she's a lady that works with different modalities. Nothing is cookie cutter. So I think that you will be in good hands. I'm pretty sure of it. So that concludes this episode right here. Her business, her voice, her conversation. Very important conversation today. So I want you to be sure to share it out. Take another listen and share it out, because this is not just for women. We have a lot of fellas who can benefit from working with Sallie also. All right, Sallie, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. Well, that does it for this week. I'll be back next week with another episode right here. Her business, her voice, her conversation. Bye-bye now.